OFX are probably one of the world's kind of longest standing currency companies. So we help businesses of all sizes move money around the world faster and at a lower cost than they can do with their banks. We have kind of a number of different products that support various different SMEs. And for our online seller clients or our kind of global merchants, we have a global currency account that gives them the equivalent of a local bank account in the US, Canada, UK, Europe, Australia, Hong Kong, to enable them to collect their overseas revenue in the currency they're selling it internationally and then move that back to either their kind of home currency at a much better exchange rate than they would get from a marketplace or a card acquirer or a bank, or just use those funds that they've collected internationally to pay their taxes or suppliers and kind of net out the requirement of moving money across borders unnecessarily.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Really good way to put that together. All right, so let's touch on what you first mentioned. So in the past couple of weeks, I know a lot's changed. I saw a big player left the U.S. I know there's a lot of things going on. So is it something in the industry that's changing? What do you think it is?
No, I don't think it's necessarily something in the industry that's changing. There's a lot of companies that have grown very quickly in the payment space over the last 10 years, and they have a lot of private equity money, I guess, that's gone in, and it was well publicized that there was potentially an acquisition event that happened in that instance, which may have made it difficult for them to keep their US operations running. And we know those folks really well. They're a great business, and I'm sure that they did everything that they could not to have had to close down. But I don't think that it's a big sea change in the industry at all. And as far as we're concerned, we're a public company down in Australia. We're really focused on the US market. So, it's unfortunate they had to do that, but it's a benefit for us because, we're here for the long term and we're focused on the US market. So hopefully we can help people that haven't got a home anymore.
Nice. So what are your thoughts on the way 2019 is going to kind of shape out with the way that certain business owners should be kind of utilizing all the, you have a ton of different products. So what is the best kind of approach for the new year?
Yeah, I think that, the payment industry is pretty interesting as far as it's gone with in the e-commerce sector particularly. There's a number of different, I suppose, payment processing solutions that have popped up, particularly in the cross-border space, where you can collect money, obviously overseas, and then bring it back just at a better rate whenever you generate those revenues. Mm-hmm. But what we see is that as this international and cross-border trades becomes more established, we've got customers that are looking for a little bit more than just a vanilla payment process with their currency flows, and making sure that they're mitigating some of that currency volatility risk by potentially buying currency in advance when they're anticipating how much they might be selling, and protecting themselves against the volatility, which is really increasing and is going to likely to continue to increase in the currency markets in 2019.
Okay. So I always get this question, and I know it's always a stupid question to ask you guys, but it's basically like, when's the right time for me to pull my money back into whichever country I'm in, which is always like, you don't know, because that's not how the economy works. But do you guys find that there's a good time for where a business is in its current life for them to actually do something like that, or is it really just that much of almost a gamble?
No, look, you can never predict where the currency markets are going to go. And like I say, so you're spot on with that. But, where I see the trend going is that, e-commerce business is getting more sophisticated, and they should be getting more sophisticated with the way that they manage this. And so what that means is, understanding what is affecting the currency markets and doing things like, with us, you can forward buy your currency. So if you know that your cross-border flows, or you've got a good idea that your cross-border flows are going to be, say, you're going to be collecting £200,000 in the UK over the course of the year, bringing that back to the US. What you should be looking to do is forward buying, say, $50,000 of that, $75,000 of that, $100,000 of that. So you've got a fixed price for bringing that money back, and you can budget to it. And then you're not going to be affected adversely if the currency market moves against you for the entirety of those kind of annual overseas revenues. And I would call that process doing more kind of price cost averaging. So then over the long run, you're getting an average better exchange rate rather than just being either doing really well if the currency market moves in your favor, or what we see more often is doing really badly because you haven't planned for the currency markets moving adversely, and then just getting caught out when you need to bring that money back.
I like that, and it sounds like it's if you do something like that, it's a little bit more projectable. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. Businesses are in the business of like protecting margins and budgeting, and shouldn't really be in the business of speculating on currency markets. And honestly, businesses don't speculate on currency markets on purpose. It's just they do it by proxy because they probably aren't aware that there's ways that they can protect the downside by just thinking through things in a bit more detail.
Nice. So I know one of the things we've had similar conversations with a lot of e-commerce sellers is about the fact of actually keeping the money overseas from whichever country you're in, and considering when you're working with a third-party vendor, whether you have a 3PL out there, you have your manufacturers out there, or anything like that, that sometimes when they send you an invoice, it's sent, in our case, let's say we're in the US, so it's sent in US dollars, and they include the conversion that they have to deal with, and they may or may not mark it up a little bit. But if you ask them for an invoice in, let's say, €1 or something, and you actually have a company set together like OFX where you can actually pay them that way, you can actually save money by not having to deal with that conversion rate. Is that something you guys see a lot of?
Yeah, exactly. And that, again, something that I would urge customers to do. It's a very unique US problem actually for US businesses, is that when they've got overseas suppliers, is that they often just have to pay them in US dollars. Mm-hmm. And you can find in a lot of cases, not all the cases, but that invoice is padded to mitigate for the fact that the company at the other end is wearing the currency risk, because someone's wearing currency risk. And so, we always urge our customers is to get the invoice in US dollars and also get it in euros, and you can work out what conversion they're going to be applying to that invoice. And then if it makes more sense to pay it in euros, then we can figure out whether that's going to be saving you money and then pay the invoice in euros. It doesn't really make any difference in terms of a payment process or any complication. It just helps you potentially save money on that padding that could have been added. So you just got to kind of get into the nitty-gritty, check those things, and use a specialist that can kind of help you dig through that in a bit more detail and give you some assurances that you are making the right decision, because there could be other instances where your supplier's maybe messed up the exchange rate or has got a really good dollar to euro rate that they've hedged and they're passing on some saving to you. But you just got to kind of check that and make sure you're doing your budgeting properly and saving wherever you can.
What kind of approach with all of the different solutions and products that you guys offer do you see a majority of e-commerce sellers using?
So, by far the most popular product is the global currency account, because it gives you the ability to collect those revenues, and I'd call it like an enterprise treasury solution for small businesses. Every business, regardless of their size, wants to get to the point where they can net their foreign currency flows by collecting, storing their international foreign currencies, and those. So that's the most popular product. And then second to that, it's budgeting for your payables and then using forward contracts potentially to hedge some of that exposure. And like I say, get some price cost averaging and just some sensible, very simple budgeting processes in place to mitigate the risk of the volatility in the currency markets.
So who do you see as essentially I want to say the ideal customer to work with you? Obviously, I know you guys offer a very wide range of a lot of things, so it's kind of up in the air on that. But on an e-commerce side, where do you see okay, that's usually a good fit for you guys?
Yeah, I think that it's, people that are selling cross-border of any size. We're happy to speak to people that are just thinking about going international and they just want to get some better understanding of what is involved in doing that and how to manage that currency exposure. And then we've got, customers all the way up to, merchants that might have a $50 to $100 million overseas revenue business that needs some much more advanced techniques, much more advanced processing. So we can help everyone at every different end of the scale. All of our customers get the same level of service as well. They all get an account manager. They get someone that they can pick the phone up to 24/7, 365 to bounce ideas off of and, just help them kind of navigate that payments world with a bit more detail. So, the perfect person, just to sort of summarize, anyone that's thinking about going international or is already selling international and wants to expand.
Beautiful. So your space, it's a very interesting space. I see people come in it all the time, but there's really only a handful of you that are, very successful at this whole global financing for any kind of business. And what is it that really either keeps you guys kind of sitting, nice at the top, or is what really differentiates you from all of the competition that, especially lately, that's starting to come into your space?
Yeah, like I say, we've been around since 1998, so we've got a very deep regulatory footprint all over the world. Like, you can't just get payments licenses to do cross-border payments easily. It takes a long time, a big investment. It's a huge barrier to entry. And the other thing that differentiates us is that, out of the whole industry, we've probably got the deepest payment network. And what I would mean by that is the ability to send and receive local payments, not going through SWIFT, to speed things up and make sure that receiving fees at the other end are a lot lower. And we pride ourselves on the fact, because the amount of time we've been around, we've got relationships with 18 of the world's largest banks. A lot of the new players that you see coming into the market now, they will kind of aggregate their platforms through intermediaries, through tier 2 banks, through kind of less stable networks. And you could pretty much name any of the top 20 biggest global banks, and I can almost guarantee that they're our partners, and those are the people that support our networks. And you just can't really build that anymore, and certainly the regulatory and licensing footprint is really hard to come by.
Wow, well done.
So yeah, and the other thing that I'd say differentiates us quite a bit is, without wanting to advertise stuff too much, but we've been very, very meticulous over the course of our existence to build in scalable processes into what we do. When we started our business, fintech wasn't really a thing, but we were probably the first company that did peer-to-peer payments, and all of our payments are manually reconciled, and that sounds like a standard thing to do, but we make probably 1.5 million payments a year. We move $24 billion through our bank accounts. And we've got around 20 to 30 operational staff that do that. If you look at some of the other companies, they're running into triple digits of the people that need to support those processes. And so what it means is that we can consistently keep our costs low, and we pass those on to our customers. So, we don't need to give people like honeymoon rates to come on board and then margins suddenly increase. We make sure that we keep our cost base low, and we can pass that value on consistently to our customers. So I'd say that's another point of differentiation, and our, kind of 20 plus years experience of doing that is a big differentiator.
Wow, nice. I love to keep these nice and short and sweet, and you've obviously given us a ton of information already, so obviously very much appreciative. Would you mind giving us some closing remarks where people can find stuff about OFX, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you just go on our website, ofx.com, we've got sections on there for online sellers. We're building out our knowledge hub at the moment, trying to provide as much free information as possible about just expanding your business internationally. And, we're here to kind of bounce ideas off of, talk about the industry, and just anyone that wants to learn about payments should get in touch and have a chat with us. I say to lots of our customers also that are out there building businesses is that we started way back on a beach in Australia. We're fortunate enough to have gone through that journey, and we're now a public company, but we've learned a lot along the way, and like many of those lessons are as applicable to a small e-commerce business today as it is for a financial institution like we are now that is still predominantly an e-commerce business as well. We've got an online platform too.
Perfect. David, much appreciated. Cool. Thank you so
much.
Right.
Yeah, nice to chat. Thanks.
Yeah, good talking. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good one.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.